you are also living for the people who are connected to you. And if you don't take seriously the weight of the people who are coming, you will live carelessly and self-centered, and you will mismanage the doors that God gives you. Preach, man of God.
What's up, everybody? Come on in. Come on in. I know I'm behind. I just flew into Cleveland, so that's why. So come on in and join me for E3. There you go. There you go. We're slow coming, but we're coming. So come on in and join us tonight. I want to encourage you to invite 5 people. Like, if you got family members, if you got siblings, if you have children, right? If you got grandchildren, I've invited our kids, and I want to invite you all to join us tonight. So come on in. It's good to see those who have already come in. Yeah. Let's invite. It's like majorly important tonight. I'm going to follow up on what I dealt with. Hey, Bishop. Wow. God bless you, sir. I'm a follow up on what I dealt with on yesterday. And so it's like super important that that everybody jumps in. So I am definitely inspired tonight to really kind of push you guys to another level. And so join me. Come on and join me. I'm just kind of making some invite notes here. So come on and join me. Anybody else that you know that needs tonight, invite them in. Invite them in. Anybody who needs tonight, invite people tonight. Because I think tonight is going to open up a whole new world for those of us who are really trying to go to that next level. So I'll go ahead and get started. On yesterday, I did a message on legacy, and it's interesting. I was talking to my wife when I left the sanctuary yesterday, and I was asking her, how do you think the message went? I wasn't looking for compliments. I really want to make this message a part of the catalog of what I share around the country. And so one of the things that I started really doing was I started really thinking about this whole idea of legacy. And it's become really big for me because I understand that one, we have 3 daughters. We have a son-in-law. We have 2 grandchildren, right? 2 grandsons. And so it's really important to Pastor G and I that our children live fulfilled and productive lives. And one of the ways that they do that is by how we do our work as parents. But more importantly, I use the word parent, but I also want to use the word forerunner. How we do our work as forerunners, how we somehow do the work of inviting people to join us, to join us as we push our children to the next level. And it's real interesting to me because I think that a part of the challenge that a lot of us have is that is that when we start talking about pushing our children to the next level, the real question that we have to ask is, are we willing to pay the price for them to be fully and completely successful? Now, I understand that they're adults and they will make their own decisions. But I've also discovered this: when you create the right space, the decisions they make will oftentimes lean towards what they're being exposed to. And I need you to get this. The Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go. When they get older, they will return. And so if you create and cultivate a certain atmosphere, if you create and cultivate a certain dynamic, if you have certain kind of conversations with your children and your grandchildren and your friends and your family, when you cultivate the right atmosphere conversationally and you do the right things and you create last week Reverend Jennifer Connor used this phrase agitating the atmosphere, and I took it, right? Because ultimately when you agitate the atmosphere of your life, when you create the right space and you create the right dynamics and you create the right atmosphere, people in your space will pick up on what you're committed to, and they will begin to trust it. Right? Now, a lot of times what happens is, we're not consistent. And so I need you to add a word. I need you to add a word, and the word is consistency. You have to be consistent, because if you're not consistent, no one is going to trust you outside of when they can see you. They're not going to trust your word. They're not going to trust your advice. So I really want to push you tonight. I do, because even as some of you are inviting, and that's amazing, I want to push you tonight because here's what I believe. God is committed to your fulfillment if you're committed to the process that God ordains. God is committed to your fulfillment if you're committed to the process that God ordains. Right now, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and Pastor Jeffrey Dennis, I see him on. I'm here because his son is hosting a conference on mental health. Well, Pastor Jeffrey Dennis is an expert in mental health. For whatever it's worth, his impact on Cal Early, on Pastor Early, has him walking out some things that he probably doesn't even understand. He's walking out because of what he was exposed to. Exposure will always produce outcomes. That's why the enemy fights to make sure that your seed is living in contradictions, because the enemy understands that if you are contradictory to what you say, you will create an atmosphere that will cause all internal conflict. If you say you love me, but then you are critical of me, or you say you love me and you're condescending, or you say you love me, but you don't care about what matters to me, or you say you love me, but you don't support anything I do. That's one of the great things I believe about my wife, is that my wife works hard at supporting what our children are doing. And it makes a difference. So I want to give you some insights. All right. I want to give you some insights tonight. All right. On this whole idea of cultivating a culture of legacy. Cultivating a culture of legacy. Cultivating the culture of legacy. Now, I want to begin with the quote that I started with on yesterday. And the quote is, the quote is from Maya Angelou. And it says, if you're going to live, leave a legacy. Make a mark on the world that cannot be erased. If you're going to live, leave a legacy. Make a mark on the world that can't be erased. Everybody watching today and everybody that will watch this when this is over, the goal of your life has to be to leave a mark. Leave a mark, because in leaving a mark, you perpetuate the positivity that is the result of God creating you. Okay, so let me kind of hit you with these things really quickly. First thing I want to hit you with is that in order to build out legacy, Gerard and Brandy, you have to cultivate the right mindset. You have to possess the right mindset. Pat, if you're going to create Corliss legacy for others, you have to have the right mindset, which means that even if people didn't do it for you, even if people didn't understand what it took for you to be successful, and God somehow put the right people in your space as you were growing and maturing, Now that you are at that place, you must constantly and consistently cultivate the right mindset. This means, watch this, write this down and put this in the thread, however you want to do it. This means you must commit to personal development. You must commit to personal development. What does that mean? That means that whatever it is that makes you a better person, is it reading? Is it being mentored? Whatever it is that makes you a better person, whatever it is that cleans up your inner life. And these are not new themes. I literally almost said the same thing from week to week. But I'm saying this stuff because I want you to get this. You have to commit to personal development. And here's what's amazing. Some of your personal development will come when you are wounded and you are rejected. Meaning then that you have to cultivate the mindset where you can interpret everything negative in a way that it becomes positive. God, you got to get this. Which means that you got to be Romans chapter 8. And we know that all things work together for our good. You've got to be able to see that God is doing some amazing things, even when you're in pain, when you're in disappointment, and even when you're in the state of your own mistakes. You've got to commit to personal development. You cannot be lazy and cultivate legacy. Legacy comes from people who work out the plan of God. So when you're hurting, see it as purpose. When you're angry, understand the anger. Ask God to give you the ability to not discern other people, to discern yourself. Get to know you. Get to understand your triggers. Get to understand the things that make you do what you do or say what you say. Deal with your inconsistencies. Deal with your inadequacies. But here's the other thing. Deal with the pain that has resulted from other relationships. Here's one of the things I discovered. You can't have a positive next relationship, no matter what that relationship is, if you do not deal with the pain of previous situations. If you choose to stay in a relationship, you can't have a healthy relationship if you're going to harbor the pain and the hurt. You have to deal with it in a way that liberates you from it so you can move forward in producing everything you need to produce. So it has to do with cultivating the right mindset. And that means committing to personal development. But it also means that you have to understand the power of influence and understand how you influence others. And then make sure that because you understand how you influence others, that you don't use that power negatively. Use that power positively. Because when you understand how you influence others, you now do the things you need to do to ensure that that influence doesn't become damaging to other people. Understand the power of influence and how influence affects others' destinies. I have influence. Yesterday, Councilman Sam Newby made a statement to me, and the statement really messed me up. He said, he said, Bishop, you have become one of the city's greatest leaders. I didn't walk around going, oh, look at me, I'm wonderful. When he said it, it put weight on me. When he said it, it put a demand on me, because that means I have influence. So if I don't do the right things, if I've got young men around me and they see a bad example, they see a bad model, they see an unhealthy example, and then they become comfortable. You ready? They become comfortable watching my bad example. At that point, my influence is destructive. You got to understand the power of influence. Everybody has some form of influence. So you got to understand influence as a part of your personal development. And then you've got to conform to the standard that matches what you believe you are called to do and be. That means you got to cultivate the right mindset. Here's the second thing. Y'all still with me? Here's the second thing. You have to commit to the process that sometimes will demand sacrifice and pain. When you are creating legacy, you have to go through the process, not the person you're creating legacy for. I remember in 1 Kings 5 when I read that yesterday. Solomon's interpretation of David's life was not David's life as it was interpreted in First Chronicles. Solomon's interpretation of his father's life was that the reason why he couldn't build a temple was that he had all these wars and he had to defeat enemies so that Solomon could walk in a season of peace. The interpretation of Solomon, the interpretation of David's actions were seen as positives. His process was seen as positives. One of the worst things, and this is so hard for me to teach, and here's why. Because sometimes I think the process that we have to go through, the people who are benefiting from it don't value us in that process. But the other thing is that sometimes we're so dependent upon their appreciation until we stop going through the process because we don't think that they understand. And here's what I've discovered. They probably won't understand until, like Solomon, you're gone. Solomon understood the process. As my father fought all these wars, so I wouldn't have to fight them. There is truth to that. He understood that. But I'm sure when he watched his father doing all of this fighting, he didn't understand it. Well, here's the thing. You got to be willing to go through the process, even when the people you're going through the process for don't appreciate the fact that you're going through the process for them. Wow. Which means you can't be self-contained and selfish. You can't be easily offended when you're building out legacy, because sometimes you're building it out for people who don't appreciate it while you're building it out and will only appreciate it once they are sitting in the seat that you designed for them. And once you're gone, which means that there's a certain level of appreciation that comes at the place of your demise. And I'm not trying to be morbid, but I need you to understand. And so one of the things that you got to do is that you got to commit to the process. Once you discern what that process is, once you discern what the sacrifice is, once you discern what the pain is, once you discern what the level of discipline that is required, once you learn that there are certain things you can't say, certain places you can't go, certain people you can't be around, when you're building out legacy, you can't sacrifice your destiny to be in relationship with certain people because they don't fit where God's trying to take you. Here's what it means then. Write this phrase down. Lifelong process. You have to commit to a lifelong process. But here's the other thing. Not only do you commit to a lifelong process, but here's the other thing. Can I take you to the next level? You have to embrace being a model that can be studied. You have to embrace being a model that can be studied. So you understand it's a lifelong process, but you also understand that you're a model. It was so interesting sitting with Jennifer last week, Pastor Connor, and Pastor G and I took her to dinner on the last night, and it was interesting. She kept looking at Pastor G, and she kept looking, and she made this statement. She said, "Oh my God, y'all are worth modeling." Now, we're two very flawed people who've made our own mistakes. But the thing that I started to understand in that comment was the fact that my mistakes should never disqualify me from being a model. Eventually, you have to become a model that other people can study. You have to become the person that other people can look at and go, wow, I want to be like them. Wow. I see some real positives in them. And it's so interesting when you get to that place where you are the model, you now have to demand of yourself, man, this is about to get really good. You have to demand of yourself a higher level of integrity. Once you become the model, you can't drop down and become familiar with those who are studying you, which means you have to raise your standard, your bar, every time. When I was a 30-something-year-old pastor, I was here. But now at a 58-year-old pastor, I'm here because how people see me is different. When I became dean, it elevated how people see me because of how they understand this title called dean. Every title, every elevation, every door that you walk through, you have to understand it's a part of your process, and you have to be committed to that process. So don't get angry at your children if they don't get it right away. They're not supposed to yet. They're only supposed to benefit. It's certain things, that my children don't understand yet. Now, it's a lot that I believe they do understand because God has blessed us with some pretty mature, children. But I remember when I was pastoring at 22 years old, there were things that my mom and my dad would say to me I didn't understand. When I came here at 32, there were things that my mom and my dad said to me I didn't understand. Now that I understand it. So your children may not always understand what you're offering them. Your grandchildren may not always understand, but you got to be committed to this process. Even when they don't get it, you still have to be committed to the process. Here's the third thing, and this is where I want to push you. Become proactive. Become proactive. The way you build out legacy is that you commit to a process and then you initiate it. And you don't wait till the right time or the right season. One of my favorite passages in the whole Bible comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 11. And I think it's verse 4. And it says, if you wait till the wind and the weather just right, you'll never sow anything and you'll never harvest anything. You don't wait till you have perfect conditions. Because sometimes your initiating it will produce the conditions you desire. Man, that's big. Sometimes the conditions will be the result of you initiating it. So you have to become proactive. What does proactive mean? It means that you settle in to a season where there may appear, you ready? This going to go against the norm. It may appear that you are imbalanced. You may look like you're imbalanced because you may be so heavy on the right side. But you understand that the right side is how you're going to ensure that the center and the left side are what they ought to be. And so you're sowing heavily into your job. If you're going, well, no, but you got to get this. At some point, you got to throw yourself into something that has the potential. That has the potential to produce something. You got to throw yourself into it. Wow. What? And you can't be excited for 6 months and then all of a sudden your business goes away because you didn't understand that in order for this business to succeed, you're gonna have to be you may have to, which means that you got to create healthy space where conversations can be had about the dream and the destiny and the purpose. I spend more days away from my wife than with her. I spend more days away from her, especially since July 1. I spend more days away from her than with her. But the thing that I've discovered, the thing that we discovered, is that what we're trying to build, what we're trying to purchase, what we're trying to prepare our children for, what we're trying to create, you ready? It's going to require that we both make sacrifices. That's why we're working on our marriage, because we understand that our marriage is the stability that helps us manage the imbalance. Woo-hoo-hoo. That's good. Our marriage is the stability that helps us manage imbalance. This season where I'm away and my wife is maintaining the home and paying the bills and keeping us on task. Can I encourage you with great news? When you have the courage to go after your purpose, you may have to make a sacrifice, but the sacrifice will be worth it when God gives you the strength to enjoy the outcome. Woo! Weeping may endure for a night. You got to endure some stuff, but you got to be proactive. So what I want everybody to do tonight is to go back, look at your life, and ask the question, what risk do you need to take? I had a conversation with one of my ministry sons who's become profoundly close to me, Gerard Bell. He's become profoundly close to me. and he was talking to me. I'm not going into detail, but I was so proud of him for the courage to talk about taking a risk. Because that's really all he's been doing him and Brandy, that's all they've been doing is taking risks. But here's the powerful thing. His wife gives him the space to go dream. Because she understands that an unfulfilled, listen, I tell y'all all the time, don't suffocate the people in your life because you're afraid that you may lose them. The worst thing to do is to suffocate somebody that you claim to love, because you will lose them suffocating them, because they will choose to breathe and not die because of you. If they got any self-esteem, if they got any good sense about themselves, they will rise above you, because they can't do you and be them. You got to be proactive. You got to be proactive. You got to go build something. You got to go design something. You got to go execute something. You got to be proactive. Stop complaining about people. Stop complaining about who doesn't like you. You got to go build something. You got to be proactive. All right. Here's the fourth thing. Everybody talks about, develop your goals and stick. No, I want to go a step further. Keep sharpening your goals. Keep sharpening your goals. Your goals should not be permanent. Your goals should evolve with the evolution of your consciousness. As you evolve, your goals should shift with your maturity. When I was 21 years old, my goal was to be a notable preacher. I wanted to be famous as a preacher. At 58, my goal is to empower and equip the world, starting with my children and my grandchildren. Continuing with my church. That's why I do this. And the School of Theology. Your goals have to keep growing with you. Whatever your goals were when you were 20, they can't be your goals when you're 40 unless you haven't accomplished them. I had this person who said to me, I've accomplished all my goals and I've achieved everything. And I was looking at them like, you got a jacked up life. If you've accomplished all your goals at 40 or 45, that's miserable. No, the purpose of goals is to keep you inspired. You don't ever accomplish every goal, because as you get older, you start to say, now my goal is this. I have a goal of retirement, but my retirement, once I retire, the goal will then be to live a sustained, healthy life. And all of these goals, you got to keep sharpening your goals. Okay, here's the last thing. Identify, at some point, you got to settle on who's next. And then you got to commit to preparing them to take the baton. You have to, at some point, you got to make a decision. Listen, you may have 5 children and love them all, but you may discover that only 2 of them are going to be ready for what you're building. It doesn't mean the others don't get something, but there are certain things. Now, I'm blessed because all 3 of our children have unique expressions. But you gotta choose somebody. You gotta choose somebodies. I'm confident of who will be the next pastor of St. Paul. And the only thing that stops it is if St. Paul itself doesn't embrace the choice. And I'm not talking about the board and all that kind. I'm talking about once people know it, that they don't get excited about it. But I'm clear about who's next. I'm not going to spend 35 years in a church and not shape the direction of it. And I'm not going to spend 35 years in a church and leave it leaderless. No. And thank God that we're finally starting to get this in the Black church. That all of this stay until we die, and people and the preacher dies in the pulpit and the church goes into chaos. No. In your family, what young person in your family are you shaping? And they ain't got to be your child. If you're building a business, Regina, Angela, if you're building a business, Hope, if you all have ideas, Henrietta, who Pat is going to be able to fall? If you go, Karen, and pay off your house, who are you going to trust with that property? And are you giving them the skill set to maximize it so that property becomes productive and financially stabilizing? You gotta have the courage to choose someone and then have the courage to walk with them. Okay, so legacy. I'm closing with the quote that I had yesterday. And the quote is, life is not a spectator sport. If you're going to spend your whole life in the grandstand just watching what goes on, in my opinion, you're wasting your life. Let me tell you why I do E3. Because E3 gives me a chance to pour out the wisdom of 37, 38 years of ministry, but also well over almost 30 years of leadership, like meaningful leadership. Very good, Regina. I am learning that my gift to the world is the wisdom God gives me. My gift to the world is the wisdom God gives me. So I want you to go back, read 1 Kings chapter 5. I want you to get it. And those who are in the space that I am, start making those life decisions and adjustments, right? Maybe delay a couple of trips so you can stack some money, partner with some people in your age bracket to go purchase some properties. George Maxey, I don't know if Maxey is still on. George Maxey and I have been talking for the last couple of years of just getting together and doing something. Cotton and Gerard and I talked about this kind of stuff. Just if you can't do it by yourself, find secure people that are in your circle. Start building out your life. The reason why yesterday I publicly announced Alfonso McClendon as my successor as chair is because I need somebody who's going to send that morning text like he did today. Your dream can't die with you. Operation Save Our Sons is much bigger than John Guns. It can't die with me. So, thank you all for watching tonight. I am in Cleveland. I have to speak tomorrow for a conference on mental health, and I'm meeting with the organizers and some of the pastors tonight. So everybody be blessed. I love you all so much. Take care. And remember this. Keep living till you die so that when you die, you'll keep living. Keep living till you die. So when you die, you'll keep living. Thank y'all. Thank you, Angela. Thank y'all who see this as confirmation for your life. I love you all so much. Fanut, my brother. Be blessed, everybody. And we'll see you again next week. All right? Take care.